Growing up, Dylan was an entertainer, always one to try and make his family laugh and smile. Dylan was the middle son of 5 siblings, and he also had a large extended family that he was close to. Most of the people who knew him would describe him as fun, friendly, and someone who loved his family. Dylan had never lived away from home. The 21-year-old came from the city of Moose Jaw, but in 2008 he moved to the city of Edmonton. Dylan had found a job as an apprentice pipe fitter, but also having never lived away from home, this was kind of an adventure for him. He would also start a new relationship with a woman named Erin, a college student he had met at a bar. The couple seemed happy. His girlfriend would describe him as sweet, funny, but kind of shy. Once in Edmonton, the 21-year-old moved in with his 2 older first cousins, Dylan Koshman and Colin Damasson, who were renting a house on the city's south side. Initially, the arrangement seemed fine, but that wouldn't last long. Tensions were brewing amongst the cousins, especially between Colin and Dylan, and before long Dylan was starting to rethink his decision to live at the property, mentioning to his girlfriend that he was ready to move out, but before he had the opportunity to plan out his immediate future, tensions would reach a head, and after a bizarre night of violence, Dylan would mysteriously disappear, leaving accusations swirling around the family. On the weekend of October the 11th, 2008, Dylan was feeling homesick. He invited another first cousin from Moose Jaw, Dylan Koshman, to visit, a fateful decision that would lead to tragic consequences. The versions of exactly how things panned out that night are sparse, and what information is available can be conflicting. According to Dylan Koshman, who prepared a 9-page account of that night, he was at home with Dylan and Cameron, but Colin was out for much of the evening, arriving home sometime after midnight. Dylan, it was said, had been consuming alcohol, and although never stated, it seems reasonable to assume that the others had been as well. Nick overheard Dylan and Cameron discussing how they planned to fight Colin when he arrived home, and he sent Colin a text to warn him about this, and when he did come home, sometime after midnight, he and Dylan went at it, pushing each other around. They make it to the floor, and Dylan began throwing punches, and Colin, according to Nick, was trying to restrain Dylan rather than hurt him. Nick says that at around 2:30 AM he turned around to get a drink, and when he came back Dylan had left, and Colin said he went out back. In his statement to police, Colin wrote almost the same thing, that when he got home in the early morning hours of Saturday, he confronted the pair and told them to leave. We argued and a fight wrestling match broke out. Colin went on to write that after the wrestling match he continued to argue with Dylan and told him to get out, he didn't live here anymore, and told him to come back and get his stuff later. He said he left out the back door. That's the last time Colin says he saw Dylan. In fact, that would be the last time anyone would see Dylan. 2 neighbours called 911 on that night to report a fight taking place. One saying that there was a man being beaten. The fight, it appeared, had spilled from inside to outside the property. However, the police did not respond to the call until hours later, by which time all was quiet. No one answered when they knocked at the door of the rental house. Cameron also called the police that night to say Colin had attacked him, and he was hiding from Colin as he was afraid he was going to beat him up. According to Cameron's phone records, Someone used Dylan's phone to call Cameron at 3:30 a.m. several times in the span of 1 minute. Cameron says he missed all the calls because he was calling 911 at the time. There was no activity on Dylan's phone after this point. With the events of the night appearing to be over, it would be reasonable to believe Dylan did walk out that night into the freezing cold, possibly to clear his head, possibly contemplating everything that happened that night, but he would surely show up the next morning or contact someone. However, no one would hear from him, and when he failed to turn up for work on the 15th, concern grew. Erin contacted his brother, who in turn contacted his mother, who attempted to file a missing persons report. She was told she wasn't allowed to, as he went missing from a different county. The police station advised that Colin DeMasson, the man at the centre of the fight, would need to phone them and report him missing. Colin would never make that call. Eventually, a police investigation would begin. When it did, his wallet and phone were found in a neighbour's yard. There hasn't been any activity on Dylan's bank account since he vanished, or any other sign of him. During the investigation, Dylan's friends and family had to reckon with the uncomfortable fact that one or more of his own cousins could have had a role in his disappearance. The role of the cousins would come under further scrutiny in the following months. As the search for the missing young man began, Colin did not participate, instead choosing to go skydiving. Colin in particular rubbed a lot of people the wrong way during this time. At one point he made a rather blasé remark that people went missing all the time in Edmonton, and that it was easy to hide bodies in construction sites. The majority of Dylan's family, including his dad, refused to believe the cousins had anything to do with his disappearance. But others in the family believe they know more than they are letting on, causing a rift at a time when the family should be standing together. In the years since his disappearance, Dylan's case has been upgraded from a missing persons case to a homicide investigation. It's unclear what prompted this. Whatever happened that fateful night is not clear, and the timeline of events is not clear either. If Dylan did in fact wander off in the freezing temperatures, did he die of exposure? And if he did, where is his body? If he did meet at the hands of foul play, was it at the hands of a stranger, or someone much closer to home? All these questions remain unanswered, and as of 2024, Dylan remains missing and his case unsolved.